Good evening. So in terms of looking at resilience, click something like in terms of looking at business resilience, I also want to look us this morning to look at personal resilience during what has been probably a very difficult time for everyone. And then gradually, as the conversation goes on, we'll go more into kind of hardcore business sort of resilience and so forth. We're scheduled to have 3 panelists. At the moment, we have 2, but maybe Mark Webber may be joining us. But I'd like to introduce Jackie Nixon and Shalom Lloyd, and then I will ask them probably quite a few questions, and then we'll open it up to a discussion. But if the rest of you at any point wish to interject, ask a supplementary or so forth, please do so, and we'll run this for just over approximately an hour. But perhaps to begin with Shalom and Jackie Nixon, who, by the way, is at the moment calling in from Queensland, Australia. I'd ask you two, would you please, starting with Shalom, would you please introduce yourself and just tell us what's it been like during the last year or so with COVID? And then I'll move to Jackie. Shalom.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, it's great to be here, and thank you for having me. My name is Shalom Lloyd, and I am a pharmacist by qualification. First of all, I'm a proud mother of 5, and I'm a pharmacist by qualification, and I'm the proud founder of a company called Naturally Tribal Skincare, and the co-founder of another amazing company called Emerging Market Quality Trials. So I'm an entrepreneur at heart. My company, Naturally Tribal Skincare, started because after 4 cycles of IVF, I gave birth to my twins, and one of them was born with severe eczema. He was scratched till he bled. And after going through this whole sort of chemical process of IVF, as I call it, I wanted to look for a natural remedy for my boy, and tapped into my African roots and started mixing in my kitchen and Eureka formulation, fluke as I call it. 3 days later, Joshua's skin cleared, and that was the birth of Naturally Tribal Skincare.
Great. And how's your COVID? You're still here, so that's...
Yes, I would say hooray, but we're still here. COVID-19 presented unforeseen challenges and hitting our sales. It's a retail company. We sell products. The supply chain was hit. Production was hit. And one of the great things about the business model that we have is the main ingredient I use for my products is called shea butter, which is an ingredient I'm obsessed with. And it's shea butter keeps about 16 million rural African women employed as a source of income for them. And it's only predominantly from Africa. So what I had done, as shea butter is a main source and ingredient for me, I built a facility in Africa, Nigeria specifically, a shea processing facility to employ rural women to make our shea butter. That was also hit in terms of the lockdowns, the impact of COVID, nobody knows what's going on. But as you say, we're still here. I'm sure we'll go into a bit more detail, but COVID did hit us hard, as it did many people, but proud to say that we are still here.
Good, thank you. And Jackie Nixon.
Yeah, good morning, good evening, because it's 7:15 where I am. Originally from Lancashire, but lost that lovely accent from being down south for far too long. Started off in the politics and events, and then moved for the past 25 years, been working in the corporate environment for Microsoft, Cisco, Informa, so big old corporates, and kind of had a real love-hate relationship with those. Loved all of the coaching, the leadership roles, all of that, fantastic, and really less happy with all of the politics and actually seeing my impact in those businesses. So have set up my own coaching and consulting business and really, really enjoying that whole process. have to say the last 2 years have been quite, I'm going to use interesting once, that well-used word. I was made redundant twice, and the second time was far easier. And I can certainly talk about personal resilience as you come through. So having worked for a company for 13 years, as you go through that process, it had a certain impact on me and everybody else around me. But I think I mean, like I say, I'm loving this current role, but owning my own business. But the best other role I've ever had was when it was me and 2 other people. And certainly when you have a small business, you don't often learn fast.
And Jackie,
so delighted to be here today. That will be news to you.
Okay,
Did you lose me?
We just for a second there, but I think it was okay. I think it was okay. So I'll ask. Okay, so my second question then to both of you. I mean, you clearly have both got masses of talent and experience and skills. I want you to go back to your early part of your career. And what did you learn early on, a skill, a talent, or something that has really kind of sustained you throughout the last however many years? And I'll just give Jackie's Wi-Fi time to sort of settle a little. So maybe I'll come back to Shalom first for this question. Shalom, what sort of helped you early on in your career, that a skill that's been particularly prominent throughout?
Oh, I mean, I think for me, that's I'm one of those really extremely annoying people who truly believes that anything is possible. And I think the reason why I'm that kind of person is because of the foundation I had from a very early age. So I was always a bit of nerd, a proud nerd when I was younger. My sciences were all I knew. And at the age of 16, I got a scholarship to study pharmacy in the former Soviet Union in the 80s. So imagine this 16-year-old on a plane heading to Moscow, and got there to a country where I knew no one, didn't speak a word of Russian, and arriving to this new place, and then 12 hours later being on a train to the Ukraine, to a wonderful village called Vinica. Now, that was my home for 6 years. So 6 years after living and studying in a country to which I arrived without knowing a single word of Russian or knowing anyone, I arrived back to the UK with a BSc and MSc in pharmacy under my belt. And in addition to that, a language. So my experience in the former Soviet Union not only nurtured the scientist in me, but it gave me confidence, determination, resilience, the will to succeed. And I think the ability to adapt. And I think the biggest thing was understanding that my success, my failure, my joy, my sorrow, my love, everything was down to me as an individual. So that was a huge foundation for me. As this young girl, going to this place, if you think about, it was during perestroika, the huge communism era where you couldn't work as a foreigner. So I started to trade. The Russians love denim, they love jeans. So I was one of the lucky ones. I had access to come back to the UK. I'd take a 3-day journey, 12-hour train from Kharkov to Kiev, from Kiev to Berlin, from Berlin to the Hook of Holland, get the ferry and get to Harwich, from Harwich to Liverpool Street, buy denim jeans as much as I could, and do the same journey back. So that's how I lived and survived. So everything that, the way I react to situations and how I am, actually that was a huge foundation for me in terms of dealing with situations, particularly those that are outside of my control.
So being exposed to, and that's fascinating, really is. So being exposed to that situation in Moscow and in Ukraine, the fact that you could do that must have given you enormous confidence, and as you say, you know, anything now is possible. Is that is there anything that you wish you had known now, what maybe you do know now that you wish you had known then?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think for me, it's people. Everything we do in life comes down to people. I think one of the things that I've learned, and it continues to reiterate in my life every day, is people. The people that you surround yourself with, your social capital, even in a business journey as you're starting a business. It's easy to say yes to everyone when somebody offers you something, but it's back to Jim Collins' Good to Great, right? It's about having the right people in the right seat on the bus and being able to say no and letting people go. I found that I kind of held on to people thinking for dear life, thinking, oh God, if this person leaves me or walks away, you know, the whole thing crumbles. And sometimes the biggest lesson for me is that sometimes people come into your life and they can be catalysts for a short period of time. And it's okay to let them go because you seem to propel after that more often than not.
Very interesting. Great. Jackie, the same question to you. What did you learn early on or develop that sustained you throughout?
For me, it was about knowing my purpose and really understanding more about me, what my values are, and staying then true to those values. So I'm not talking morals, I'll give you an example. I have a really strong value around respect, and that means respect for other people. So really listening to them, understanding. It can sometimes not serve me so well because I can be a little bit too respectful. But by staying true to those values, it's really served me well. And I know that when I'm living to my values, I enjoy far more of what I'm doing. And then back to the purpose as well. My purpose is very much around where I get my fulfillment is seeing other people really fly and take off. And you can see that right the way through my career, that where I'm serving people and having them really develop and take off, then I get my satisfaction, my fulfillment. And I think that is really important because particularly when you're in a business and everybody's got very full lives and everything else is going on, when you go off track a bit or when something maybe goes in a different direction rather than the planned one, if you're staying to your purpose, then it all feels much easier to manage that change and be flexible. And then I suppose the other thing, actually, Shalom, when Shalom was talking about this, it's very much the same as people and diversity of thought, have that around you, and don't hire people that are exactly the same and make you feel comfortable, because good ideas come from one small idea, and then if you've got that diversity, it'll create into something far, far bigger. And then my other one would be always ask for help, never be shy. And that one has really served me well.
And is there anything, Jackie, that you perhaps now know with experience that you wish you'd known when you're starting out?
It would be that one.
Shalom, about people.
Yeah.
And so on. What is that?
That one.
Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it was when I started out, I thought I had to know everything, and I needed to be the font of all knowledge. How can you be, especially when you're learning so much? And, you know, when you're in business or in life, you're always learning so much. So if I had to go back and look back 20, 30 years to myself, I would say, if you're thinking that question, so's somebody else. So just ask it. And what's the worst that's going to happen? Nothing. It's dreadful is going to happen. So ask. And I've always been amazed at the support that you can gather from people that, strangers and the people you know. There's a lovely book by Bob Berg, and I'm going to forget the other man's name, which is called The Go-Giver. It's quite a small book, short book, but it's a lovely tale of a business person learning and developing how to sell and how to build a network. And it's all just about keep giving it away and eventually it will come back. It's a great read.
Well, that perfectly takes me on to my next question, which is about networking and how to, I suppose quite crudely, how do you convert networks into useful business opportunities, whether there's clients or customers or whatever. Last week I heard someone called Kingsley Aiken, who is an elderly gentleman, but apparently a bit of a networking guru. And he was doing a talk about how over COVID and so on, our networks have significantly shrunk. And he was also saying that women tend to have deeper, more meaningful networks. Men tend to have more broader, more shallow networks and so forth. But and he said many other interesting things, but those were a couple of things that struck me. How, in your case, Jackie, how do you, and you're moving from corporate world into like a kind of a new world, which many people here in this audience will have already been starting on for a little while themselves. How would you suggest people should convert the many contacts that we have? How do you distinguish the ones that are most important to you commercially, let's say, and turn those, make the most of it, of those people that you do meet?
Yeah, it's and I've been learning about this recently. Actually, I found when I was starting up that I sort of like, everybody goes, activate your network. Fantastic. So I did this whole, talk to a whole lot of people, and it's great to connect because you never know where a connection to a connection is going to lead. So that's all good. But also, I mean, we'll all get this. We'll all get people coming and talking to us and asking for help. But I always start with, can I offer something that's going to be useful to this person? So, whether I did a trade recently with one of my former colleagues. He's really good on social media, LinkedIn, and I need a little bit of support from him. But at the same time, he was struggling with doing some mentoring and some coaching. So I swapped my experience for his experience, which is a great barter. And I think it's also being realistic and being honest. When you're connecting with people, I would really value some of your time because I've seen that you have moved into this area. Can you help me? This is what I'm trying to do. And like I say, the generosity of people is brilliant. I do think, though, be honest with yourself. Networking, of course, it's great to build connections, but maybe prioritize who are the people that really you can see from what they have been doing could really help you now. And then are there other people that actually it'd just be great to chat to them because you haven't spoken to them forever, ever. So be honest and be realistic.
Great, fantastic. Shalom, the same question, how do you convert your...
I think I totally agree with everything Jackie said. And I think one of the things that she talked about that really resonates with me is the fact that if your social or business network is limited, and when I say limited, what I mean is if you tend to sort of be in a space where you're working with sticking to people who are the same as you in terms of values, ethos, everything, then that limits, there's no diverse thinking or even innovation to draw on. So your social capital, your network is extremely important. And how I approach it is, first of all, have it. So it's about putting yourself out there and having a network of people that you can draw on. It's a give and take. It's a two-way street. The second is, for me, categorize it. So I do that. My two hats that I wear in the healthcare sector. I come from a corporate environment. I worked for 25 years in the pharmaceutical industry. And a lot of those contacts and good relationships have also served me well after moving from the corporate right to the entrepreneurial journey. So first of all, have it, then categorize it into, where does this person fit in my world? In my case, does it fit in the pharma industry or does it fit in the beauty sector? Then the next stage for me is ask, we always, I think Jack alluded to this as well, we always hesitate to ask. So asking is really, really important. It's as important as giving as well. I always live by, it's better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. So that's really, really key for me. Don't expect a quick return. I think it's about investing in relationships. Everything we do in life is all about relationships, right? You know, for me, it's been authentic. There's nothing better than being your real self. I'll give you an example. For my skincare company, Natural Tribal Skincare, we heard that Harrods Beauty was opening up in Milton Keynes. So Harrods was bringing their store to Milton Keynes. And I thought, oh my goodness, we are one of the, top beauty, brands in Milton Keynes. How do we get in there? So tapped into every single network I knew in the area, had no shame, just went for it. What's the worst they can say is no. We eventually got a meeting and I asked the question, how can you say you're coming to Milton Keynes and not stock a local born and bred brand in the community that you're coming into? And I'm proud to say that today you walk into Harrods in Milton Keynes and you'll see our stand with our products on it. So again, it's about asking, it's about tapping into your network, somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and also being that network that people can tap into is as important.
That's really great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you now about, you talked about people, networks, and so forth. What do you think about people who've been difficult? Someone in your lives, professional life, of course, that has been difficult. Could be a boss, could be a colleague, could be a business partner, or whatever. How did you, well, first of all, did you have such an experience? And how did you perhaps deal with it? And you obviously don't have to talk about any names or whatever, but how did you deal with difficult people, not difficult situations, difficult people? And Shalom, maybe I'll start again with you on this one.
I think if we live in a world where, there's so much talk about diversity and inclusion now, everywhere you look, it's there, right? So we also have to recognize that this world is diverse. If we're all the same, this world will be extremely boring. And being different means accepting the fact that different types of people exist. And, it's about actually trying to look at things through people's eyes. Sometimes when you say somebody's being difficult, define what that is. Okay, have you kind of looked at it through their eyes? Because what you could be asking for, what you want at that particular time, the timing might not be right for them. They're looking at it from a completely different perspective to you. But there will always be absolutely great people and some difficult people in our life journey, in our career. And for me, that is okay. In some ways, I get a kick out of actually breaking down the difficult people. It's I've been in business development, and one of the things I always say to my teams, I've always said, is you have to suffer from multiple personality disorder yourself. And what that means is you tailor your language, your body language, everything, your messaging to that particular individual. So when you say that somebody is being difficult, quantify that. What exactly does that mean, that they're difficult? I can sit here and say I've had difficult bosses. The one boss that comes to my mind was actually the best. If I look back today, I'll say she's the best one I had. I defined her as a very difficult woman. But today, in my entrepreneurial journey, that difficult woman actually prepared me for difficult situations today. So, define what difficult is. There's some people who would say to you, oh my goodness, Shalom is difficult to deal with. And some people will say to you, no, she's amazing to deal with. It depends on the situation. I choose not to believe that people just choose to be difficult just for the hell of it. We're all human beings. I tap into, back to my experience in Russia again, looking at those situations. I can list out hundreds of situations where I thought was very, very difficult, and people. I come from an amazing heritage, African heritage, raised by parents who were very traditional, who on a personal level, oh, you have to marry an African man. I defied that. So what is difficult, So at various levels, you have to look at things from people's perspective. I look at my parents and say, that's the era, that's the generation, that's all they knew. So you have to have that empathy, in my opinion, actually. I think one of the things that serves me well is looking at exclusion. If you think exclusion creates separation, separation in turn creates fear. Fear creates conflict and anger. If we approach things from a place of empathy, you'll start to see things differently.
Great. Jackie, have you ever met anyone difficult? Dealt with anyone difficult?
Yes. And I would say, so I come from this is why I was grinning, because I come from a marketing, that's my career, right? Marketing and sales traditionally have a kind of like full-on warfare, and a complete, usually a complete misunderstanding or lack of agreement on what success looks like. Because when marketing's creating demand, we're always looking at a long time, whereas sales are going, I need to hit that number this week, this month, this quarter, this year, get on with it. And therefore there was always a certain tension between the different parts of an organization. And I think the last role I had actually in corporate life, it was a dream, because I was going through the interview process and actually the sales lead was involved in it. And I said to him up front, I am so over fighting. I only want to come for this job if we can agree what our common goals are and how we're going to achieve that. So I think that's one of my learnings, was try and find the common goal that you can all agree on, however basic that can be. At one point I was coaching one of my team and said, look, you both breathe, so start from there and then start to build on that about what else you can find that's common. The other thing I would say is that we all operate in quite a narrow, naturally, we all operate in quite a narrow way. So mine, I tend to be quite chatty and kind of like, right, how are we going to work together? And we all have so much opportunity to expand the range in the way that we operate, the way that we lead, how we work with other people. So maybe try and step out of your comfort zone of, okay, this is how I do things. And it's very similar to what Shalom was saying, but a slightly different take. It's kind of maybe try and look for, well, why is this person working in this? Or how do they work? Watch and listen and understand more about how they work. Do they like their information in fact 1, 2, 3, or do they like the story? Do they like the top, or do they want all of the detail? So try and understand them rather than getting people to fit your style, and know that you really, every one of us can be far more expansive in the way that we work and engage with people.
Absolutely. I think lots of nodding of heads at that.
Yeah.
That's very, very good advice indeed. Could I move us on now, slightly away now from people and more on to business strategy? And Jackie, you're starting out your tremendous experience in corporate life. Now you're developing a new business. How are you approaching your business? How are you laying out your strategy? How are you kind of thinking about how you're going to do this? Do you want to just share some thoughts?
Yeah, and it's evolving, which I think is lovely, and it's a real shift for me, and I'm sure other people will have gone through this. In my in-house, in my corporate roles, I was heading to this target. I had a team of people that I was working with and other functions that I was working with, and we were going boom, 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 target. And in this, it is much more about, it's a longer game for me. I own all of this, and it's wonderful and also slightly scary occasionally. But I also need to recognize that not everything is going to work at the pace that I initially envisaged. And that means just maybe adapting what I thought was going to happen at different points. I think also the area that I'm in, which is coaching and then also using all my experience and knowledge from marketing consultancy, and isn't most business all about relationship? But I've been asked many, many times, kind of, are you going to focus on a particular area? And it's not for me about industry. What I'm looking at is the type of people that I want to work with or that are ready to work on themselves. So it's a different segmentation. So again, I expect lots of people have done this. It's really thinking through what is the person that I need to or want to target. And taking it very much back to the person rather than the type of business or, what particular industry they're in, and then focusing in that way. And then not trying, I get distracted very easily and would chase bright, shiny objects. So then also being disciplined in saying, right, this is where I am going to focus. These are the types of people, this is where they're going to be. And therefore, this is where I'm going to be. So for me, LinkedIn is a good platform. For others, it will be different platforms. But identifying where you're going to be, understanding what the timeline is, and then adapting that and being flexible to see if things go in a different direction.
Terrific. And Shalom, same question, your business strategy.
Yeah, I'm a little sort of a little less structured than Jackie, I would say, particularly after moving from corporate life. My mantra is think it, say it, do it. And if it doesn't work, failure is an option. And if you're going to fail fast and move on to the next thing. So when I think about the two business I mentioned to you that I oversee today, it's, Jackie, what you had said resonated with me. It's all about purpose. I pride myself in running businesses that have purpose, impact in their DNA. And I don't think I did them on purpose, to be honest. So if I talk about Naturally Tribal Skincare, it was just people say to me, oh, you're a pharmacist, so you took your time to form it. I was just a mother looking for a solution for my son's eczema. I wanted to use a natural solution. And, was a bit crazy, found an opportunity and remortgaged my home to start this business and just went for it. It just so happens that now that people are talking about, again, sustainability, clean beauty, ethical sourcing, I smile because I built a factory in Africa employing 17 rural women to make shea butter. We make 20 tons of shea butter a month. What I need for my products here in the UK that I bring in is about a ton a year. So we actually make those available to other companies. That gives me the traceability. So that's empowerment, that's sustainable. That's telling my customers where my ingredients come from, right? We bring the ingredients into the UK, manufacture, formulate, test here. So my strategy is I built this company on 3 solid pillars. First is efficacy, products that work naturally. The second is ethical sourcing and empowerment, the fact that you can pick up a jar of the product and be able to trace the main ingredient back to source. I can take it to, it's not a story, I can take it to the kingdom of Essam to meet our women. And the third pillar is what I call planet hugging, looking holistically from packaging, from ingredients to everything that we do hugs our planet. As long as my business sits on these 3 pillars and continues to do so, that will forever be our strategy going forward. It's something we've done from day one. And, and it all started with my son having eczema. So for me, it's purpose, impact in its DNA. I want to look at my second company, Emerging Market Quality Trials. My father passed away of cancer. He lived in Africa. Although patients of African descent make up 17% of the world's population, only about 3% of them are involved in clinical trials. So I made it a mission that, because I thought to myself, if only my father had been in a clinical trial, maybe he'll be alive today. So I started EMQT to get pharmaceutical companies to include African patients in clinical trials. And that for me is really looking at things from a personal point of view. They're businesses and not charities, but it's really making sure that at the foundation of these businesses, you have purpose, you have impact, you're solving a problem, you have a solution. And I feel really proud because it's interesting that this day and age, people are just catching on to that. But for me, it was kind of a no-brainer from the start. I don't know if that makes sense at all.
Absolutely, and very. I've got loads of questions I'm here to ask, but I also, I want to just say to everybody else that both Shalom and Jackie have been saying things that might be triggering with you. So please just, I don't know what, wave a hand or whatever doing, but if you have a question you want to come in, please feel free to do so. And we'll run this now for probably about another 20 minutes or so. So if you have a question you want to ask, please don't hold back. Going back again to Shalom, is there something from your past that you wish you had done differently, either on a strategy side or on a personal networking side or so forth? Oh man, why did I do that? What would you do differently if you were starting out again?
Gosh, that is a question I hear quite often. I mean, it's a difficult one for me to answer because I'm one of these weird people who just has no regrets. I don't regret things because I just think we all make mistakes. I think, like Jackie says, nobody knows it all. If there's something that I would like to change is, I guess, speaking for people who work for me and with me, is really slow down. You cannot conquer the world. And I just wake up every morning thinking I can. But I don't necessarily have any regrets because when I look back and trace my life journey, be it personal or business one, everything makes sense. The successes, the failures. I don't see, like I say to people, failure is an option. Failure are those steps you climb towards success. So I don't necessarily, I know it's hard to believe, but I don't regret things. I mean, things have happened. I think, oh my God, I wish this didn't happen. But 6 months down the line, a year down the line, you think, oh my God, I learned from that, which is why I'm making this choice today. So I don't necessarily have regrets.
Right, very interesting. Jackie.
I would have done my own business much earlier. That's the thing that I would have done. Having said that, I have learned so much through my corporate career and, the paths that you take. Sometimes you go in a different route. So if I hadn't been made redundant, then I would have still been going, well, maybe I will, maybe I won't do this. So I would have been brave to take the first step to set up my own business earlier. However, there's no regrets there, but I think that's what I would have done. So I think it's just sometimes taking the first step can be the most challenging, but everybody here has already done that. So, hey, we're already ahead.
I'm sure lots of people on here have got regrets. Certainly I have myself, although I take Shalom's point, one learns from them. And I actually think, Shalom, your point about don't rush it, take time. I think I wish I'd maybe done that because you put all kinds of stress on other people as well as oneself. And I certainly, I just want to give
Tommy, the other thing I would do differently this sounds a bit bizarre, I would have sorted out my self-confidence far earlier. There was a lot of time where I was almost relying on other people to tell me that I was doing a good job, and I was over putting time in, into my work to try and get that trying to get that satisfaction and justification and knowledge that I was good. I am damn good at what I do, and I wish I'd kind of known that earlier. So that's one thing, actually, looking back.
Absolutely. I just want to pause a little second just in case somebody from our audience wishes to ask anything at the moment. And there's obviously nothing.
Suzanne.
Yes, I take Susan, and I think Barry as well. So Susan, yes, please.
Hi, thank you. It was really interesting and really helpful because I started my own business. I identify myself with Jackie. I don't have any question specifically, but exactly when you say I had more confidence, I think it's just when you come from the very strong background in corporate, and also I have PhD in coronavirus vaccine development and so many, I mean, long-term education and hard work behind you. I think I become very perfectionist. Everything I want to be perfect, and I have to trust myself. I think it's a trust. We need to do that, and thank you for the time.
I would say one of the things that I do with myself, but also when I was in corporate, I used to do with my teams a lot, was to get them to sort of like look back. And I used to do it every 3 months, 6 months or whatever, and just notice what you have achieved. What have you done? What went differently? So not wrong, but differently. And what have you learned from that? And it's incredibly useful because also from a business perspective, but also for yourself, it's really sort of like, oh yeah, no, I've done a good job here. And oh yeah, that was a really good learning. So yeah, just looking back is useful, which goes to Tommy and Shalom's slowing down a bit can be good.
Barry, would you like to, you wanted to ask or say something?
Yeah, no, there's some fantastic questions and answers from Jackie and Shalom. On the same token, it'll be good to hear from yourself, Tommy. What would you have done differently from an iGenius or a global centre for healthy workplace perspective?
I thank you. It's and it's kind of, I resonated a lot with listening to Jackie and Shalom, and certainly in the very early days, I think I had a very perfectionist view of what it was I wanted to do. For instance, with iGenius, Barry, when we were working on the summit in Thailand and so forth, and there were various people around. And I think when one has a very perfectionist view, which is quite typical for early stage, it's quite difficult for others to have enough input, and you also put quite a lot of stress on them. And I think I wish, in a way, I don't regret it because the outcome was fantastic, but I kind of wish I had. Now I'm much more, hey, what do people think before I plow on? And I think that's what I certainly have learned over the years. With difficult individuals, and I again really resonate with what our two friends have been saying on this. One thing I've always learned is that if you are falling out with someone you've been working very closely with, always maintain respect. So never go, don't do that. Keep it very respectful. Remember the good times as well as you're dealing with the difficult. And people that I have in most cases had difficulty with in the past, I have managed now to maintain their friendships. Not on all occasions. Some people definitely not, but I think for good reason. But I think keeping respect as much as possible, and keeping the language, being careful about your language, and so forth. I think that's more or less kept me in reasonably good stead. But yeah, I'm sure we'll all make mistakes, and I'll make plenty more as we go along. There's no doubt about that. So, thank you. Any other questions or points before I ask another one? Okay, so let me ask another one. Think about the big wide world now. It's all changing. COVID, Brexit, blah 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 blah. Some of you are moving around and so on. What do you see as potential opportunities? Maybe not so much necessarily always for yourself. Where are the opportunities in the world out there that may be for yourself or may be more general for the audience? where do you see opportunities that people could capitalize on and make their lives better, make other people's lives better, grow businesses? So again, a bit of strategy here, but opportunity spotting. And perhaps Shalom first for this one.
Oh, thanks, Tommy. There's two for me personally and professionally. I see huge opportunities in Africa. There's a lot of businesses now. All eyes seem to be going towards Africa, and rightfully so. It's the rising billion, as I call it. By 2050, more than a third of the world's population, Africa is contributing to that. So we can't ignore Africa any longer from a business point of view, from a personal point of view, an empathetic point of view. And it's important to not put Africa and aid in the same sentence. It's more trade, it's more actually looking at the opportunities are enormous across sectors, across industries. So I think if you look at the summit, the G7, when you look at the UK Africa summit that happened in February, the Prime Minister described Africa as the next frontier or something like that. So that for me, that's a big one. Africa is coming, and it's an opportunity for us all to be ready. The second opportunity I see is our planet. For the first time, if we're going to pick out something that COVID-19 brought to the fore a lot, is the fact that we have one planet. It's our responsibility. We're accountable. So I think it's about doing your own bit, because people are looking for this huge solution. It's really about us as individuals doing our little bit to actually make it better. I know it sounds, happy, clappy and mushy, but really, I want to leave this planet with a footprint, knowing that, here lays a woman who actually did something to help our planet, because we've only got one, be it whatever industry. The beauty industry, 120 billion units of unrecyclable plastic are produced by the beauty industry every year. 120 billion. That's not much. That's only one industry. So I see, zero waste projects, different things that people can do. There's so many opportunities that in our everyday life, personal and professional. So those two areas, Africa and our planet.
Very, very good. Jackie.
So actually taking on from the planet side, and I would say this because I work for Microsoft and Cisco, but the opportunity now to actually contact and engage with people wherever they're living, wherever they're working, is there using technology. And technology is, I think what COVID and the whole pandemic has proven is that you don't have to be in a place to connect with others. And I think that's brilliant. I mean, I've managed teams for a long time that have been scattered all over geographies, and hybrid teams where they're, some people in one place and some others. And you can make the connections, you can build innovation, you can do all of that without actually physically having to be in the same place. So I think there is still much more that can be done, which will reduce the impact on the earth while allowing us to be more innovative, more connected. So I think that's a real opportunity. The other thing that I'm seeing a lot of in the business I am at, and also a lot of conversations going on all sorts of different social platforms, is actually people going, I want to work more to my purpose. I don't necessarily want to be making rich people richer. And so those two areas I think are a real opportunity. I wonder, I don't know because I'm not an economist, but I wonder if, I mean, we know that small businesses are really a powerhouse of lots of economies, but I do think there is, I can see a trend where people moving more to work for themselves or into smaller organizations, but because of the connectivity that technology provides, being able to work into many different markets. So I think there's enormous opportunity to actually break with the traditional work patterns and structures that we've seen. And I'm yeah, I'm curious to see what comes next.
Absolutely. And I'd like to take it back to the personal. COVID has thrown up all kinds of stresses and strains, mind and body, and so forth. How do both of you keep your spirits up? Sometimes you may run into money problems. Certainly, if you're an entrepreneur, you will know about money problems. You'll know about stresses and strains and so forth. How do you keep your mind and body in reasonable shape and deal with dark times? And perhaps I'll go back to Jackie on this one.
Yeah, I'm a total believer in one body, one mind exercise. For me, I'm kind of like, I have discovered Adrian and her yoga through this last year, 18 months or so. But then also, even if it's just getting out, going for a walk or running, I just had to do 2 weeks lockdown in Darwin in a very small area. I have learnt to skip. I have not skipped since I was a child, but that kept me sane. And also the connection with people that, you know, are very important to you. Those making sure that you are talking and that you don't become wrapped into one thing. And it may be that one thing isn't going so well, but what about all of your life, everything around you? Look for the other things that are solid and will support you.
So, and before we may ask you to demonstrate skipping in a moment, but
no, because there's too much bad language as I step on the rope again. No.
Thank you for warning us. We'll stop that fine idea that I have. Shalom, how do you keep mind and body together?
You're on mute.
Oh, Shalom, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I was going to say it's really hard because you do have those days. I certainly have those days where I ask myself, why? You know, I say to myself, you had a cushy number. You were in the corporate environment, you'd worked your way up to senior management, senior leadership roles, you had a good wage, bonus every year. You could have just stayed here and had, you know, but I always go back to my why. Jackie, when you mentioned purpose at the start, it resonated with me. I always go back to my why, and my why always keeps me going, even in the dark times. When you have a woman who, a rural woman in Africa, in the middle of nowhere, who says to you that she's roofed her house because of something that you did, that she's paid her children's school fees because you've given her employment. You can't, it ceases to become about me. It's pressure because you feel as if you're carrying a lot, but that actually reiterates my why, because you want more of this, because it makes you feel good, right? So that, for me, that's what I look to for reassurance. That's what I look to get me through the dark times. A second is my children. I remember the look on my children's faces when we walked into Harrods Beauty and they could see their mother's face on a gondola. That was priceless. To me, that was me saying, my missing parents' evening, all those bits and pieces that I missed, this was why, and I hope you're proud. So my children helped me through those periods as well.
There's just there's a lovely post that Shalom put on her LinkedIn of that video when you take your children in. It's absolutely gorgeous. Have a look. That'll make you feel good.
It makes me cry every time I watch it, Jackie.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah.
So this all sounds great. Let's have a few more questions. And again, if anyone else would like to come in, please don't hold back. What is your biggest risk or fear now going forward? What are you a bit more troubled by that may be on the horizon? I personally, commercially, or big bad world or whatever. Shalom.
As an entrepreneur, having 2 young businesses, it's finance. That's what keeps me awake at night, if I'm honest. It's finance, because with everything that happened in the last 18 months, cash flow is a problem. And I'm usually quite sort of transparent. You know, people look at what's happening at the moment. We're making strides. You know, we were launched last Friday onto harrods.com, and it's like a yay moment. But and we're going into TK Maxx, etc., etc. But as a small company, you have 90-day payment terms. Cash flow is an issue. You're thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to survive? So yeah, finance keeps me definitely awake at night, and so it should, because like I mentioned before, you have a lot of people depending on you to survive, to live, and for me, failure is not an option at this point. So finance is a huge one.
Absolutely. And I'll just follow on that one, and I think every entrepreneur experiences it, and I think it's somehow you've got this black cloud of money problem that's somewhere there, and it's just trying to not let it dominate you. And I think that is, it dominates many. And I think if part of maybe the survival trick is just not letting it consume you, because it can very, very easily consume us. No one ever has too much money. So even the very rich, usually you'll find, don't have too much money, and certainly not people like most early stage entrepreneurs. So Jackie, what do you feel is the biggest kind of risk or concern that you have?
That everybody becomes a coach, and then there's not enough people to coach. I'm seeing lots and lots of people come out there, and I'm sure, Nick, you'll be going, where are all these coaches coming from? Seriously, do you know what? I suppose my biggest fear is that I don't make this work. However, I really love this, and I'm going to make it work. So every now and again, I just go, ugh. But for the most part, I'm still in that optimistic side, and I don't have other people relying on me. I mean, and I have no intention of this business that I'm running to have employees. I would love to work with other people, but so I think for me at the moment, I'm just bouncing along along the top with not too many cares. Come and talk to me in 6 months' time if I haven't hit the targets that I've set for myself, and I think I'll give you a different answer.
Absolutely. So, and I want you both to think about.
Tommy, I was just going to say, I think Nick had a question. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, Nick, brilliant. Thank you, Nick. Thank you. Please come in.
Yeah, I suppose my question so far, I've limited investment in my business, which sounds strange, but I've tried to do everything myself where I possibly can in terms of developing my website and all of those things. Now it's getting to the point where things are starting to grow, and I want to invest in my own business. And I just kind of wondered, who did you help you to make the decision on where to invest? So there's so many different things I could look at, but to make those decisions, I come from a corporate background, so to make those decisions on my own was like quite a big deal. I'm going to invest this money. Who have you used to help you in terms of a soundboard, or to make those decisions in terms of where to spend that money?
Yeah, shall I? Yeah,
yes,
I have used my old network. And I have gone to people that I respect. So I went from my website, I went to my old digital lead, and I said to her, what, how, and again, generosity. And then I've traded some things, and I have simply asked people who have done something similar. And I actually worked with a coach that has set up her business, and got some advice from her on what she did when. So I have used that network unreservedly, and just asked people what did they do. And also people are very generous, because they will say when they got it wrong, and where they invested a lot of time here, and just don't do that, try this. So I would just use that wonderful network that you will have.
Shalom, what advice would you give in this situation?
Nick, can I just ask? Nick, can I ask what your business is, if you don't mind sharing?
Absolutely, yeah. So like Jackie, I'm a business coach. So I focus on people's personal strengths. So when you talk around values, 100%, exactly what I'm doing, to trying to help individuals to use those strengths that they've got to further themselves and to reach their goals.
No, that's amazing. For me, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you hear me okay or not?
Sorry, yes, I can. Yeah.
So I tapped into my mentor. I have an amazing mentor who I reached out to ask the question. And you know, there are people in your industry as well. I mean, a bit like Jackie said, don't be afraid to ask. I have a great accountant. I don't know if you have an accountant. They're a minefield of information and will help you from a financial perspective also make that decision. If you have a great relationship, I have a great relationship with mine. You know, at what point do you? And it also depends on how much you believe in your business, in terms of, because you're the first person who has to invest in it and put your money where your mouth is because you believe in it. So why would somebody else invest in it if you're not investing in it?
I think that was really good advice there from both. And what I just say myself, Nick, is perhaps be wary of friends and family, because they probably aren't always the people who will give you the best advice. They'll usually tell you not to do anything, and that may not be always the right thing. But do you want to come back, Nick, on what the others have said?
Yeah, I think there's some, I think it sounds really an obvious question perhaps when you're faced with it yourself, but I'm so used to working in a team that actually to work on my own is very, very different for me. And actually the first people you turn to is often friends and family, but like you say, potentially that's not the best source of information. So I think, yeah, a mentor sounds like something I'm definitely going to look into. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions before I ask my last one? Okay, then I will see to ask my last one. Right, put you both on the spot now. 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you would give to an early stage business setup or an entrepreneur, from your own vast experience that both of you have, and it can be anything, be as random as you want. 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you think people should consider. And maybe I'll ask you, Shalom, first.
Thanks, Tommy. I always reply with the same 3 things when I'm asked this question. I live by 3 principles in no particular order. Is start by doing what is necessary, and then do what is possible. And before you know it, you've conquered the impossible. That's a quote from St. Francis of Assisi, but it really captures the journey, and I strongly believe in that. The second thing I would say, I mentioned it before, it is better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have one and not be prepared. Be prepared in any situation, in any scenario. Know your stuff, research. Be prepared, whether it be presentation to people, etc. We talked about dealing with difficult people, is be prepared. And lastly, there will always be obstacles and barriers as we go through our life journey. However, I believe strongly that failure is an option. Like I mentioned, failure is the first step to success, and multiple failures are multiple steps towards success. So those 3 things mean a lot to me.
Fantastic. Jackie.
Yeah, so it's what I've already said. Know yourself. Start off with yourself. Know your purpose. Know your values. Know that things do not always go as planned. Sometimes they go differently. That doesn't necessarily mean it's gone wrong. And really believe that one. And then acknowledge yourself. Acknowledge what you have achieved. Acknowledge what you have learned. And acknowledge what went wrong. And then when you know where you got your energy from, what you really enjoy doing, do that. Fantastic. Keep doing that. Yeah.
Well, I would like to, I think on behalf of everyone here and those who will be hopefully tuning into this recording, I really want to thank Shalom and Jackie. I think they're two amazingly talented people. They have got vast experience. They've made a few mistakes. Who has not? We all do. But they've done many amazing things, and I'm sure they'll go on to do so. And I think their expertise, their skill, their experience, their insight, I hope I've certainly found it very helpful, and I'm sure many others will, I'm sure all of you have, and those that will watch this recording. I'd like to thank Barry and the Business and Intellectual Property Centre of Northamptonshire for hosting this for us today. And a big thank you once again to Jackie and Shalom, and for all of you tuning in, for asking your questions. Thank you very much. There's some content on the chat there that's certainly worth looking at. And whether it's nighttime in Australia or a hot early day in the UK or wherever you are, thank you very, very much for contributing for today's session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie and Shalom as well. I don't know if anyone has any last questions, whether it's to Tommy or whether it's about the BIPC or to Shalom or Jackie, but feel free to unmute yourself. If not, thank you very much for coming today. Please do check out our website. We have lots of webinars upcoming throughout the rest of June and July, with some networking events. I believe Shalom Lloyd will be joining us for our next BIPC networking event as a guest speaker. We also have a Women in Business webinar taking place in July as well. So yeah, jump onto our website and please do check that out. Please do sign up to our newsletters, and yeah, look forward to seeing you again sometime soon, hopefully.
And just one thing, good luck with all of your businesses. I hope they all thrive and you enjoy everything that's going on with them. So yeah, enjoy.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
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 See you. Thank you, Cheryl.